Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Choi. I am a master's student at NC State University. And I worked this past summer at Padre Island National Seashore on a sea turtle ingestion project. Now, this project was made possible by the Scientists in Parks program, which is a collaborative between the National Park Service and the Ecological Society of America. So marine debris entanglement is a really common issue for sea turtles, and it's easily detected. However, trash ingestion is less easily detected from live turtles. So you can see this turtle on the right. We really have no idea whether it's eaten any trash at all or how it's been affected just by this visual of it, of the live turtle. So trash ingestion takes a lot more effort to understand the issue. We have to look at typically deceased turtles, which is a really intrusive sampling method, and so it can be difficult to study. Trash ingestion was first detected for sea turtles in 1984. Since then, about 300 greens have been reported in the literature over the years. Now, 300 is a good amount, but for all of these, only presence or absence pretty much was looked at. Presence or absence is a really important piece of information about trash ingestion, but it says very little about how or what impact trash ingestion is actually having on turtles. So for example, a turtle that ate just a single piece of trash and a turtle that ate 200 pieces of trash will both be reported simply as trash present, where they're probably very drastically differently affected by that consumption of trash. So that's something that hasn't really been looked at in the Gulf, is a more detailed examination of trash ingestion itself. So that was our first objective in this study, was simply to set a standardized baseline assessment of trash ingestion. Now we wanted to go beyond presence or absence, look at like the number of items, the size of items, the color, the category, basically get as much detailed information as we could to set a baseline piece of information to which future studies could be compared. Our second objective was to compare trash ingestion over time. And our third one was to look at how this might compare, how trash ingestion might vary across different size classes of turtles. We did this by collecting stranded turtles that were found all up the coast of Texas, mostly North and South Padre Islands. In total, this study used 464 turtles, which is a great number because it's 50% greater than all previous turtles looked at in the Gulf of Mexico, green turtles looked at. So it really gives us a very large sample size to look at with a single approach to understand this issue well. We took the GI tracts out of all these turtles and extracted the food, and then we looked at the plastic. We dried them and categorized them. We took the color, we weighed and measured each piece, and also recorded what section of the GI tract it was found in. So for objective one, we found, first of all, that 50% of turtles ingested trash. Of these turtles that ingested trash, 13, the average number of items was 13, weighing about 0.5 grams, which for your reference is around the mass of a BB. So just from that perspective, not a huge amount was being ingested on average. We found only 8% of these items were located in the stomach or the esophagus. This is a really important number because it shows that if a study only uses the stomach or the esophagus as their sample of plastic, they could really grossly underestimate trash ingestion. So again, we found that 49% ingested trash. If we only look at turtles or data from the stomach and the esophagus, that number dropped to 12%. So it's very important that to get a good picture of what's really going on here, that studies look at the entire GI tract. Some only look at stomach because that's a lot easier. In terms of type of plastic ingested, the most common was plastic sheets, and these were like plastic bags most commonly. Next were hard fragments like pieces of a water bottle, and then fishing line or other filamentous type plastics. Together, these three types were by far the most common. Other types of plastics like rubber were very infrequent. Nurdles or industrial plastic pellets were also uncommon. We found 16 total across 9 turtles, but just 2 of these were found in 2019. We actually expected quite the opposite. Given the high prevalence appearing in recent years on shores, we thought there would be a lot more nurdles present in 2019 turtles than turtles found in the 80s or 90s or early 2000s. However, we found just 2, which is actually a very good sign. It shows that despite high amounts of these nurdles appearing on beach shorelines, they're probably not impacting green sea turtles in the Gulf very much. The most trash ingested was 11 grams by a 60-centimeter turtle. You can see a picture of what this looked like on the right. Now, this turtle didn't show any signs of death due to plastic ingestion, which is impressive because that looks like a large amount. In fact, not a single turtle in our study showed any sign of death directly due to trash. Compared to other regions in the world, this is common. Death due to trash is relatively infrequent. It does happen, but it's not reported. It's not normally the norm. In terms of the amount ingested, we also saw a low amount in the Gulf. The 11 grams here, which is the max, is lower than the average of some other regions. So we found on average just 0.5 grams, which is actually on the very low end globally of the amount of trash ingested by sea turtles. Objective 2 was look at trash ingestion over time. And I just have two statistics here to show that point. The first is the presence or absence of trash. In 1987 to 1999, about 33% ingested trash. That number climbed to 2019, where 66% ingested trash. So while I did say that presence or absence data isn't necessarily the most informative, this does show a clear trend of increasing prevalence of trash ingestion by sea turtles. When we look at the quantity ingested, however, that number really didn't change too much over time, staying around 0.2 to 0.25 grams of trash ingested. So while turtles are ingesting more trash, they're not ingesting more of it. Objective 3 was to look at trash ingestion across size classes. We found that for the smallest size class, 3/4 ingested trash, and for the largest size classes, only 1/4 ingested trash. So there was a clear decline in frequency of trash ingestion as size increased. We also found that the smallest turtles tended to increase more trash itself. So not only did they ingest it more frequently, but they ingested the highest mass of trash. When we combine this with time period, we see that the smallest turtles in the latest time period ingested trash most frequently, and then only 10% of the largest turtles in the earliest time period ingested trash. So this really demonstrates that clear trend between time period and size class, where smaller turtles are ingesting more trash and turtles in later periods are ingesting more trash. Now, why might these small turtles be ingesting more trash? To understand that, we need to take a look at a part of sea turtle developmental biology. Hatchling turtles immediately swim out to the open sea in a region like this, where they forage on floating algae called sargassum in the deeper waters. However, after that, the turtles are returning to shore. So these larger turtles are foraging in these channels and bays along the coast and inshore areas. And here they're eating less of this sargassum algae and more seagrass and other types of algae. And so one possibility for explaining why younger sea turtles are ingesting more trash and more frequently is simply that there's more trash available in their environment to be ingested. And so here's a picture again of these young turtles in their pelagic environment swimming in the sargassum algae that they eat. So the same currents that are collecting sargassum algae together may also be collecting trash and floating pieces of plastic in that environment. Younger turtles tend to be more generalist, where they're eating not just plants and algae, but also things like invertebrates. So they might just be easily ingesting plastic that's floating there. Our guess is that they're not actually purposely pursuing plastic and selecting it as food. They're just incidentally eating it because it's available in their environment. And when we actually looked at a subset of turtles for which we had diet data as well, we found that the strongest predictor beyond size class was simply the presence or absence of this sargassum algae. So one possibility again is that trash is more present in the sargassum algae environment, and that is why the sea turtles that are younger, that are foraging there, are eating trash more often. It's not because they're purposely selecting it, it's just because they're finding it more available in their environment, whereas in the environments next to shore, in the lagoons and bays and channels, the trash may not be as prevalent. Now, this is not the only explanation. It could be that larger turtles have gotten better and have learned to not eat trash, or it could be that they're passing trash more easily. These are some things that still need to be worked out in future studies and that aren't abundantly clear yet. Now, there are two conceptions about sea turtle ingestion which I wanted to address here. The first is this idea of straws just being really bad for sea turtles. Now, certainly this viral video from several years ago is accurate in the sense that straw up the nose was not good for this sea turtle, but are straws that threatening to sea turtles? In this study across all 464 turtles, we actually found one piece of straw ingested, and that was a 1/4-inch piece. So at least in the Gulf of Mexico, for green turtles, in terms of trash ingestion, straws are not a major issue. The second is this idea that eating plastic is just deathly for sea turtles. There have been some studies that have suggested that a single piece of trash can increase the chance of, or can give you a 1 in 5 chance of dying. We found no turtles that showed direct signs of death due to plastic ingestion. Now, this doesn't mean that none of them were harmed. It just means that there weren't direct surface correlations between plastic ingestion and death. What would be more interesting to look at in the future is what types of indirect effects are there. So could plastic be leaching off chemicals into turtles? And how might that be affecting their survival? Some highlights of the study that I want to review in closing, or this was the first standardized review of trash ingestion by sea turtles in the Gulf of Mexico. We were the first one to really go deep into this, and so we were able to provide some really important baseline information. Half of turtles ate trash. This frequency doubled across 3 decades. So the prevalence is clearly increasing. We found that small turtles ingested trash more often and in greater quantity than larger turtles. And finally, we were able to link trash ingestion pretty clearly to sargassum ingestion. And one explanation for this might be that there is simply more trash available in environments that have sargassum algae. We don't think that the turtles are specifically pursuing and selecting trash, but simply that when they do ingest trash, it's because it was an incidental ingestion because it was more available in their environment. So in closing, I'm going to leave you with some of these highlights and then say if any questions aren't able to be answered today, I would welcome for you to contact me more. And then you can also find a copy of this presentation at this website. Thank you.